When it comes to Naruto what ifs, there are dozens upon dozens of possible outcomes for each scenario, largely dependent on what gets established as a trigger point and what decision a character makes. In the multiverse known as Naruto what if, we've looked at different scenarios like what if Itachi never died, to what if Sasuke killed Naruto, to what if Minato was never evil. However, one of the biggest what ifs that we haven't covered here on the channel is what if Hiruzen killed Orochimaru. That's why in today's video we're going to look at that very scenario, and as we get into the video, don't forget to smash the like button because it puts a smile on Himawari's face, and it costs you absolutely nothing to hit the like button to make Himawari smile, and subscribe to the channel if you're new here as well. Now, in order to make this timeline happen, we must first establish a trigger point. Now, there are two real moments in the timeline where this could indeed happen. Scenario number one is when Hiruzen allowed Orochimaru to flee the Hidden Leaf Village, and scenario number two is when Hiruzen failed to seal Orochimaru with the Reaper Death Seal. While both are pretty tempting scenarios, I'm going to choose scenario number one. However, if we can hit 3,000 likes on this video, I'll make a video for what if Hiruzen sealed away Orochimaru, because like stated before, when an event takes place will cause the actual timeline to change drastically. Now, in this timeline, the change would occur when Hiruzen and the Anbu Black Ops confront Orochimaru. Originally, Hiruzen was overcome with the love that he felt for his former student, that he was unable to bring himself to strike down Orochimaru. Upon noticing that moment of weakness, Orochimaru fled from the village. Now, in this timeline, the opposite would happen. The memory of who Orochimaru used to be would make Hiruzen resolve himself to end Orochimaru right there on the spot. The changes to the timeline are almost immediate. No Orochimaru in this timeline is absolutely huge. After Kabuto killed the nun who he viewed to be a mother, Kabuto would be absolutely vulnerable. Naruto chapter 583 makes that very clear. Kabuto was on the brink of an emotional breakdown after he killed the woman that he called mother, and it was after Orochimaru appeared in front of him that he was lured by Orochimaru's words. Orochimaru being dead in this timeline means that Kabuto would stay undercover in the Stone Village and would not know that Danzo decided to have him killed off, which means that Kabuto would eventually be killed by one of Danzo's men. This has major implications later on down the line because two of the biggest villains in the series are no longer alive. The changes to the timeline continue with Suigetsu never being taken from the Mist Village, which means that he will live out his original destiny of one day becoming one of the 7 ninja swordsmen of the Mist. All the test subjects that Orochimaru had will remain in their villages because they were never captured. The next major change that will occur will be during the Chunin exams, which you see the Sand Village not invading Konoha because it was due to the alliance of Orochimaru that they felt emboldened to attack the village. This has major ramifications. Sasuke never gets the curse mark. Team 7 doesn't lose precious time waiting for Naruto and Sasuke to recover, which means that they likely grab the remaining scroll with more time to spare. This means that the Chunin exams would continue as they were meant to originally. Neji was still going to lose to Naruto. Sasuke and Gaara would be a pretty tricky one, but I'm gonna say Sasuke would be declared the winner over Gaara for 3 reasons. Number 1, Kankuro in the manga said that Gaara would not be able to keep up his sand armor for much longer when Sasuke was fighting him. Number 2, Sasuke Chidori did a lot of damage to Gaara to the point where he relied on Kankuro and Temari to assist him with moving after they fled the village. And number 3, if Gaara looked like he would have lost control, Baki likely would have had a seal to suppress his chakra, or the 4th Kazekage would have done so, given that a Jinchuriki going on a rampage would be utter hell to contain. From there, we would likely see Shino in a very high difficulty match take down Kankuro, but due to the confined setting that fight would take place in, it could honestly go either way, but I'm gonna pick Shino. No Orochimaru likely means that another Genin takes Dosu's spot, which ultimately would have Shikamaru take out that ninja, only to forfeit against Temari. The Naruto versus Sasuke battle in the next round will be absolutely interesting. Naruto will be able to draw on part of the Kyuubi's chakra here when he's inevitably backed into a corner by Sasuke. Sasuke, on the other hand, would have already used Chidori once in order to defeat Gaara, which makes their matchup all the more interesting to play out. In my opinion, the advantage here leans more so slightly in Naruto's favor due to him being able to hijack some of the Kyuubi's chakra when he's backed into a corner, which sees Naruto with his second upset in the Chunin exams. The lovable, knuckle-headed ninja who failed the academy 3 times would find himself in the Chunin exams finals against the winner of Temari versus Shino. While both are pretty impressive strategists and Temari is more powerful, powerful, I'm still going to pick Shino because I believe Shino will find a way to be able to use Temari's wind release against her. I give it to Shino high difficulty, but this would be a damn good fight to see play out in my opinion. As for the final matchup, regardless of whoever it is, I believe Naruto's too unpredictable of a fighter for either Shino or Temari to take down in a fight, especially given that they would likely be fatigued from having multiple fights, whereas Naruto is a stamina monster. In the end, I believe that Shikamaru, Temari, and Shino will be given the rank of Chunin, which means that despite winning the exams, in typical Naruto fashion, he never becomes a Chunin. No Orochimaru means that the 4th Kazekage and the 3rd Hokage never died. No Orochimaru also means that Jiraiya never goes out of his way to search for Tsunade, who would be living her best life drinking and gambling. Tsunade would never become the 5th Hokage, and she would never get over her fear of blood. There's a chance that Jiraiya still trains Naruto and teaches him the Rasengan, but because the 3rd Hokage never dies, that means that Itachi would never return to Konoha. This means the only hatred inside of Sasuke's heart is jealousy towards Naruto, and that mainly comes from Sasuke being too weak to beat Naruto in the exams. No destruction of Konoha means that Kakashi isn't out on S-rank missions and Team 7 can't continue to go on active missions. However, I do believe Jiraiya would still have gained intel about the Akatsuki despite not following Orochimaru in this timeline. This means Kakashi would take a more hands-on approach in Sasuke's training. Jiraiya would likely talk the 3rd Hokage to agree him into overseeing Naruto's training, and Sakura would be the odd man out here. No Tsunade in the village means that she never learns medical ninjutsu, and given that she's never expressed any interest in learning medical ninjutsu prior to this, I don't think that changes at all. Instead, I believe that Kakashi would train her where he could when he wasn't working with Sasuke to assist her in genjutsu training, since that was stated in part 1 to be Sakura's specialty by Kakashi's own words. The next few years would pass much the same, but major differences would be with Sasuke and Sakura. Kakashi would have still trained Sasuke in the way that Jiraiya intended, which means that Sasuke would be far more skilled using his Sharingan than he was after training with Orochimaru. While Orochimaru was a genius, it's one thing to understand the Sharingan in concept, it's another thing to actually have mastery over the Sharingan like Kakashi did. Sasuke in this timeline would be significantly weaker due to not having the curse mark or being pumped full of drugs to boost his physical stats. Sakura would be just as skilled with genjutsu as she was with medical ninjutsu in the original timeline. Naruto would emerge out of the time skip as the strongest member of Team 7, with Sasuke being close behind in power but far ahead of Naruto in terms of skill. Sasuke by this point in the timeline would likely be promoted to Jonin, which would infuriate Naruto to no end because Naruto would still be a Genin. Our next major change that occurs will be during the Kazekage rescue arc, where you have the Gaara versus Deidara fight. Gaara in this timeline would never be changed by Naruto, which means that he wouldn't have deep attachments to the village, which means that it's more likely for him to go off on a rampage and transform into the One-Tails. This ultimately would cause Sasori to have to come out of the shadows to assist Deidara, which is a reminder the Akatsuki moved in 2-man pairs specifically for this reason. The belief was that 2 Akatsuki members could take down a Biju without actually killing the Jinchuriki. The battle will result in more damage to the village, and when the 4th Kazekage steps in, he's likely killed by Sasori. The lack of relationship between the Leaf Village and the Sand Village means that Temari is likely inside the village during this time, which means that she likely follows after Kankuro to stop the Akatsuki duo, but she ends up getting poisoned as well. Ultimately, the 2 Sand siblings would die here, which means that Konoha never learns that the One-Tails is sealed away by the Akatsuki. Hidan and Kakuzu likely show up in the Land of Fire, and the 3rd Hokage is alerted of the presence of 2 Akatsuki members inside the Land of Fire after the attack on the Land of Fire's Fire Temple. Asuma will still end up dying during that battle that followed. Now, there's room to debate if Hiruzen would allow Naruto the same freedom as Tsunade, whereas Tsunade allowed Naruto to openly go after the Akatsuki. Hiruzen and Tsunade have different leadership styles, and Hiruzen would be more likely to actually give into the demands of the elders to keep Naruto inside of the village because Naruto is a Jinchuriki, though I could see Yamato being assigned to the team as well because of his ability to use wood release and Naruto failing to master the Kyuubi during his training with Jiraiya. Assuming Naruto is kept inside the village, the mission to hunt down Hidan and Kakuzu has a few major changes. There's a good chance that Naruto is never taught the wind style change in chakra nature, since Kakashi directly suggested this idea after Yamato reported how much Sasuke improved and the Leaf Village only had 6 months to bring down Orochimaru and bring Sasuke back to the village, otherwise Orochimaru would take over Sasuke's body. Kakashi during the original timeline was pressed for time, and by his own words, he needed to get Naruto really strong really fast. Change in chakra nature drills weren't something that a Genin was expected to undergo, which is exactly why Asuma and Shikamaru looked thrown off when Naruto said that he was undergoing chakra nature training. Training Naruto in wind release wouldn't actually cross Kakashi's mind. Naruto would never learn wind release, which means that he doesn't create the Rasen Shuriken during this timeline. I do believe Hiruzen would allow Team Asuma to go after Hidan and Kakuzu, but I believe he would send a backup team consisting of Kakashi, Sasuke, and one other Jonin, likely Neji, if Neji was inside the village during this time. I believe this team would be more than enough to bring down Hidan and Kakuzu. Where things get really tricky is Itachi versus Sasuke. Itachi was still arranged for a fight with Sasuke, and he would likely find a way to give Naruto Shisui's eye as a backup plan due to Itachi being on his deathbed. But in this timeline, Team Kakashi would be in the vicinity of the fight. Kisame in this timeline wouldn't be fighting Suigetsu for mere fun. Instead, he would see Naruto there and realize he has a chance to capture the Nine Tails. Konoha with Kakashi on this team in particular would not pass up the opportunity to bring down Kisame. Now, in my opinion, I believe Kisame would stop short of actually capturing Naruto because he would understand that Naruto would need to be sealed away last. While he would be tempted to just kill Team Kakashi and keep Naruto restrained until it's time to seal him away, I believe Kisame will hold off, though Kakashi's Kamui does make this fight very interesting if Naruto can distract Kisame with shadow clones long enough for Kakashi to snipe off Kisame's head using Kamui, which is a real possibility once Naruto states that Samehada has taken away his chakra. But unless Kakashi snipes off Kisame's head, I don't see Team Kakashi winning this fight before Itachi dies fighting Sasuke. Ultimately, once the battle between Itachi and Sasuke is finished, I believe that Team Kakashi would find their way to Sasuke before Obito's alerted of Itachi's defeat and they're able to take Sasuke back to Konoha. This means that Sasuke never learns the truth about Itachi and is viewed as a hero by everyone in the Leaf Village. The conflicting emotions over killing his brother would make Sasuke awaken the Mangekyo Sharingan. Now, where things get really tricky is if at any point Kakashi tries to train Sasuke in how to use this Mangekyo Sharingan, if their eyes meet, Kakashi's Sharingan is going to trigger the Matarasu seal that Itachi put into Sasuke's eyes, and if for whatever reason Sasuke does see Kakashi's Sharingan, I'm going to assume that Sasuke is able to extinguish the flames of Amaterasu, even though it's not his Amaterasu flames he will be extinguishing. Jiraiya would still be allowed to go investigate Pain, where he will ultimately die a very brutal death. I believe that Naruto would then go on to be taught Sage Mode. However, where major changes actually occur in this timeline are before, during, and after Pain's invasion, and these are huge changes. Originally, before Pain was sent after the Nine Tails, Sasuke captured a clone of Killer Bee. With the Akatsuki down so few members, I believe Kisame, if he wasn't killed by Team Kakashi earlier on in this What If, would be sent to capture Killer Bee, and if Team Kakashi did manage to kill Kisame, I believe Obito would personally go collect Killer Bee. I don't see Bee surviving or being able to trick either one of them, which means that by the time Pain travels to Konoha, the remaining Akatsuki members would seal away the real Killer Bee. Having Sasuke in the village means that Konoha does a lot better when they fight against Pain, with Sasuke using the Matarasu on the animal summonings, but more people will ultimately die due to not having Sakura there, showing the strong leadership that she did when she was treating the injured, and Kakashi will still likely fall in battle, especially if Sasuke isn't there fighting by his side. The next major change that occurs will be when the Deva Path confronts the third Hokage. If you'll recall, Nagato referred to the Second Great Ninja War as being Konoha's war, a war that Konoha started. Seeing the Hokage responsible for that war is likely enough to trigger Nagato to have the Deva Path blow up the village. Tsunade never being in the village means that Katsuyu never protects the villagers who Pain would have killed in that moment. The third Hokage will likely die in this explosion as well, which means that when Naruto arrives to fight Pain, he sees that most of the villagers are dead. Given that the Uchiha are a lot like cockroaches, I believe that Sasuke would somehow survive the blast by sheer luck, and a duo of Sage Mode Naruto and Mangekyo Sharingan Sasuke would battle against the Six Paths of Pain. Now, due to Naruto having such a high level fighter right there with them, and Sasuke being smart enough to pick up on the abilities of Pain, I do think they stand a good chance to win this fight, but it's going to be a really high difficulty and a lot of things are going to have to break their way. Sasuke would be smart enough to realize the way the chakra receivers worked, and the two of them would go on to confront Nagato, and Nagato would use the Dragon Balls that are known as the Rinne Rebirth to bring everybody back to life. Both Naruto and Sasuke would be viewed as heroes to the Hidden Leaf Village. In the aftermath of this battle, with Sasuke likely overusing his Mangekyo Sharingan like he did during the 5 Kage summit, Sasuke likely takes Itachi's eyes, thus we have Sasuke with Eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. Now, Danzo would likely make a very compelling case that Hiruzen shouldn't be allowed to be Hokage again and that they're only alive because Nagato brought them back to life, but I don't believe that Hiruzen will step down as Hokage. Now, the defeat of Pain makes things a lot trickier going forward. Obito would have no choice but to actually go after Sasuke. By this point, the Akatsuki would have sealed away all of the Biju except for the Nine Tails. Obito would need somebody to sync with the Outer Path statue. It remains very possible that Obito just kills Konoha and takes Nagato's eyes, implants one of them into his eye, and does what he did during the war arc, and he controls the Outer Path statue. However, given he was so keen on wanting Sasuke to replace Nagato, I like to think that Sasuke would be his next option in this timeline. Given the time that would have passed between Sasuke's defeating Itachi, I don't think telling Sasuke the truth would work, given the fact that Naruto likely would have seen Sasuke's EMS at this point in the timeline. That means that the crow eventually would have came out of Naruto's mouth and placed Sasuke under Kotomatsukami, which means that Sasuke would be programmed to protect Konoha, so it doesn't matter what Obito planned because he's essentially been checkmated by Itachi from beyond the grave. In this timeline, Obito would have to go all in on capturing Naruto. Assuming that Team 7 did not kill Kisame, we would have Obito and Kisame, Data and Sasori pull up to Konoha in order to capture Naruto, and this is where things get very tricky. Danzo would have no choice but to support Hiruzen by having Root Ninja stand beside Konoha's best and brightest. Danzo would have no choice but to show off his Sharingan eye as well as his Sharingan arm, and given that Danzo does have one eye that has Kotomatsukami, that means that he can turn one of the Akatsuki members against one of the others. The Akatsuki team of Obito, Kisame, Data, and Sasori would face off against Hiruzen, Danzo, Team Kakashi, which includes Kakashi with the Mangekyo and Sasuke with the Eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. All the members of Team Guy, not to mention Naruto, will be there with Sage Mode. Honestly, it'd be one hell of a battle, but due to Obito having Nagato's Rinnegan and this version of EMS Sasuke being a lot weaker than the one from the original timeline, this makes this a tougher battle for Konoha depending on who Danzo uses Kotomatsukami on. However, despite Guy being weaker than the version of Guy from the war arc and Konoha having the entire village ready to back them up, I believe that Guy in his final moment of glory would unleash the power of the 8th gate in a monstrous display of power that, when coordinated with 6th Gate Rock Lee, EMS Sasuke, and Kakashi, would be able to destroy Obito with the Night Guy Jutsu or the Evening Elephant. Night Guy or Evening Elephant would absolutely clear the table, leaving Konoha celebrating the power of youth as Guy destroys the more troublesome members of the Akatsuki during his final barrage, leaving Naruto and Sasuke to clean up anybody who survives. In the end, due to Sasuke being programmed to protect Konoha, Itachi, without realizing it, would break the cycle of hatred in this timeline for the time being, and Zetsu would be forced to wait for another set of reincarnates in order to revive Kaguya. However, that's gonna be it for today's What If. Let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below, and let me know what if you want to see me cover in the future. But so always, guys, if you like anything I had to say, don't forget to comment, rate, subscribe, and share. Thank you so much for watching to the end. Have an awesome day, guys.